Welcome to Gaming the System, the only channel coming to you from the unusual and unexpected intersection of gaming and theology. I am your host, Caleb Allen. Today, my co-host is absent due largely, in fact entirely, to my own technological hiccups. We had done a little gameplay video, but that file got corrupted, so I've had to record it on my own. Before we get going, I wanted to give a shout out to Rhino Crunch. He served as really an inspiration for getting this channel started. At the end of each of his videos, he would read a portion of scripture, and that inspired me to take the idea that I've had for quite some time and to combine gaming with theology on the same channel. And so that is precisely what we will be doing. Now, why theology? Well, for one, it is a love of mine. It's something that I've been studying for the last 10 years now. So I've come to understand quite a bit, though I admit I still have quite a ways to go. And I've also come to love theology not only for its intellectual component, but also for the practical side that can be easily misunderstood and even misused. Now, when I say misused, what I mean is how theology is taken and applied, which really stems from a starting point of being misinformed or having some sort of misunderstanding. It's when we have the fullest understanding of our doctrine that we are able to properly apply it, and it's a lack of understanding that causes improper application to life. Now, when it comes to studying theology, there are two general methods that are really the only options available to us. The first is systematic, so it's a systematic study of theology, and the second is what's called a biblical theology. It's a biblical in a lot of ways is an unhelpful term. So let's go ahead and define these terms. When we say systematic theology, we are referring to that method of theology that gathers all of the passages on a particular head of doctrine and puts them into one place. So it's a way of looking at one particular head of doctrine with an eye toward all of the passages that touch on that particular doctrine. Now, biblical theology is a method of studying theology that traces the development of a particular doctrine through the Bible from the book of Genesis, which is the first book of the Bible, to the book of Revelation, which is the last book of the Bible. Now, there have been some disputes in the past as to whether or not biblical theology is a proper way of studying theology, or if systematic theology is a proper way. And even in my own interactions with friends and some of the books that I've read, you can see that conflict between methodological approaches still exists today. So why choose systematic theology? 'Cause that is the approach that we will be using. Why systematic theology over biblical theology? Well, to put it quite simply, it is not because we have any sort of problem with biblical theology. Quite the contrary. Both Ryan and myself find biblical theology to be rather useful and beneficial in our study of Scripture and also theology. So the reason then that we've chosen to go with systematic theology is, you could say it's primarily due to time. You see, with a method that requires tracing a doctrine from the beginning of the Bible to the very end, we could quite literally spend hours upon hours upon hours of discussion just tracing one head of doctrine. And so rather than do that, as beneficial as that would be, I think the better approach would be to take a systematic look at doctrine. And we'll be doing that using as a guide Berkhof's systematic theology. Now, when I say using as a guide, I do not mean that we will be reading chapters from Berkhof. That would also be rather beneficial and quite enjoyable, but that might be quite enjoyable for only Ryan and myself. So what we will be doing is using the heads of doctrines that are given in Berkhof's systematic theology, and that'll be our guide for what topic we take up in each video. Now, the format for this channel as a whole, our goal for the format is to make it where we'll have, I guess, a video cast would be the best way of putting it. It's not quite a podcast, since there would be a video element to it. But basically, it would be me and my co-host Ryan Somerville sitting down and discussing a particular head of doctrine and seeking to iron it out in a matter of 30 minutes, both explaining what the doctrine means, its importance, as well as its practical application to life. Now, we hope to follow up that same week that the video is posted with a live stream Q&A, where you will get to witness our on the one hand, very bad gaming skills, but that also will provide opportunity for you, our listeners, to join us either through the mobile Xbox app or by hopping on, if you have a console yourself, and joining us in a game to ask us any questions that you may have. Now, of course, you could also put comments and post your questions in the comments, and we will take up as many of those as we can. So why use a gaming platform for this? Well, quite simply, I think that theology can be a subject that can be dry, and it can be uninteresting at times. And coupling our discussion of theology with gaming allows us to then go and create a more informal and more relaxed environment in which to have these theological discussions. But it also makes it where it's not simply thick, heady discussion for an hour at a time. And so we can mix up our gameplay with our theology. And of course, there'll be distractions with the gameplay. That's unavoidable. But it's something that I hope will allow for a broader audience who might not otherwise want to hear a theological lecture or talk. May open those doors for just that purpose. Now, both Ryan and I are Reformed and Presbyterian. We are part of the Reformed Presbyterian Church of North America. And so the perspective that we come at theology will be from that perspective. I don't want to get into it too much because we will be doing a video on that shortly. So I'll save further comments for that video. Now, one thing we should clear the air on is this matter of gaming and streaming games and the question of, are we or do we consider ourselves major league gamers, MLGs, as is common online these days? And that would be a resounding no. If you want tips on how to win the most Fortnite or whatever game that may be streamed, we may not be the channel to go to. If you want to laugh at a couple guys who enjoy playing a game but simply aren't very good at it, then you will definitely find our channel to be worth following. Now, in upcoming videos, we will discuss in more depth the the matter of being, well, really we'll take up the systematic theological side of the channel in more detail. In fact, that'll be our very next video, mixed with some gameplay where we will explain in more detail than I have here what method we're going to be using, why we'll be using that method, and what it means to be approaching this topic from our perspective. In the video after that, we will be taking up more of the gaming side of things to really give a full of an explanation and as we can as to why we've chosen this format. And then we hope in the coming weeks to put together our first discussion on a theological head, and that will appear sometime around the middle of April. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for that. Well, this is all I have for you now. I wanted to give you a heads up on what this channel will be, and with the hopes that you will look past our gaming deficiencies and join us on this journey of theological study mixed with humorous gameplay. I am Caleb Allen with Gaming the System, and I hope that and pray that you will have a blessed evening.